Hi everyone, it's Heidi Harris. I'm the dietitian with the Indian Valley Family YMCA, and with me is Miss Rachel. Rachel, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, I'm working with Heidi, and I'm currently a dietetic intern at the University of St. Joseph's in West Hartford, Connecticut. And I'm actually finishing it up. This week is the last day on Friday, so it's exciting. Yeah.
Awesome. So today what it is that we're going to focus on are some of the questions that you guys submitted to us, nutrition related questions, and Rachel and I are going to do our best in order to answer them for you. You ready, Rachel?
Yeah.
Awesome. All right, so we are going to start off with the first question, which is, what is a dietitian?
Okay, so when thinking about what a dietitian is, let's think about what the difference is between a nutritionist and a dietitian. So a dietitian has 4 years of an educational bachelor's degree, and then we also have to do a 1,200-hour supervised internship after we graduate, and we also have to pass an RD exam to become certified or in the state that we want to work in.
Exactly.
Compared, yeah.
Yeah. Compared to what? What else? What would we be comparing it to?
Like compared to the nutritionist where you don't have to have that kind of educational background like we have.
Exactly. Yeah. Nutritionist doesn't actually need to have anything, honestly. There's a lot of companies that will promote, like, you can get a certificate in nutrition, but it's still not the same level of degree and accelerated and advanced work that we have to do in order to hold ourselves accountable for state licensure or
Right.
certification. So, and that is certification and licensure with the Department of Public Health too. Yeah. So, question number two, which is a very common question I've noticed, especially a lot in my practice with you guys, actually, is, should I eat a banana and isn't it high in sugar? Yes, eat a banana. Bananas are wonderful, amazing things, and I love them. I have them as a staple in my diet almost every day, personally. Bananas are a great source of fiber too, in addition to a nice source of potassium and just overall great electrolyte balance, healthy nutrition, and yes, there is sugar. Sugar that you find in all fruit is called fructose. However, there's no more sugar in a banana than there is in a serving of strawberries or a serving of blueberries or any other sort of serving size that you would have in a standard set of fruit. So by restricting yourself from having a banana, you're restricting yourself from, making yourself feel a little bit more full throughout the day, a very healthy snack, high in fiber, a little bit of sugar, but that sugar is going to help last you until your next meal.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. Plus, you can get creative with it, and you can kind of chop up your banana, and you can add it as part of a meal. I don't know about you, Rachel, but I like adding it to oatmeal.
Add it to cereal in the morning.
Cereal, yeah. Banana
Even
bread.
exactly, or like ice cream out of the bananas.
Yeah,
Just
exactly.
tons of things.
That's really good.
Yeah.
Next question. All right. Number three that we got a total here of 6 questions. So surprisingly, we're already halfway through. But number three, why are eggs bad for us?
Eggs are not bad for us. We want to eat an egg. There's a lot of controversy about them, but eating an egg is not going to harm you. We want to eat them. They are filled with vitamins, they're filled with minerals, and they're filled with protein. So we want to make sure we're eating the eggs because they're going to provide us with the vitamins, minerals, and the protein we need. So
Absolutely. And I think the biggest thing too that comes out of eggs is a lot of people are very wary because they hear that it's really high in cholesterol. But the 2015 to 2020 dietary guidelines actually did not put a limit on dietary cholesterol because they found that dietary cholesterol does not directly affect your serum or blood cholesterol. Instead, what really has been adding to that effect and kind of boosting up your triglycerides and LDLs, or the lousy fat in your blood, is actually saturated fat content and lack of exercise. So eggs are a great source of protein, like Rachel had said, and actually in that yolk, a great source of vitamin D. So especially now, I know we've had some beautiful weather, but especially us being in the Northeast, we tend to run a little bit low on vitamin D. And this is a great source for us to have it. And the yolk is actually a higher protein content than the egg white.
exactly. And if you have eggs in the morning, you can pair it with a banana, and just have some vegetables with it.
I love food.
Exactly.
Great. Alrighty. Number 4. Okay, this is a good one. And Rachel, you're gonna take the reins on this one. Should I be eating a high protein diet and a low carb diet?
So we want to make sure we're eating everything in moderation. We want to make sure we're having enough carbohydrates because our body actually runs on carbohydrates. We don't want to just have exclude one group, like excluding carbohydrates or excluding fats. We want to make sure we're having enough protein, carbs, and fats throughout the day to keep our body running. So we don't want to just say we want to have a low carb diet. We want to have a moderation of everything on our plate. So if you're looking at like the My Plate, we want to have half of our plate fruits and veggies, a quarter of it to be protein, and a quarter of it to be the carbohydrate. And you can add butter, you can add oil, you can add something to season everything up as well. You don't want to deprive yourself of the fat.
Absolutely, absolutely. Our body needs that. I mean, there are certain vitamins and minerals too that we can only absorb if we have enough fat in our system.
Right.
A, D, E, and K, vitamin A, D, E, and K, they are all your fat soluble vitamins. Soluble means absorbing it. And we need to make sure that we have a healthy, balanced meal every day in order to make sure that we're meeting our nutritional needs. And those would be those multivitamins and minerals that need a little bit of extra help in order to be absorbed.
It keeps us going.
Yeah, it keeps us going, exactly. And the other thing as well too is we have for question number 5 is what's the difference between Atkins and keto? And I kind of want to wrap this into our current discussion because Atkins is basically like a branded version of a high fat, high protein diet, whereas keto is just like kind of like a high fat diet. And one thing that we recommend, like what Rachel had said before, is having more of focusing on a balanced meal, some healthy carbohydrates coming from whole grain sources. Those sources would include soluble fiber in your seeds, usually in your legumes, which would have soluble fiber, insoluble fiber, which you find a lot in your fruits and veggies. You need both of those in order to meet your healthy carbohydrate intake. But with keto, what happens is you actually restrict yourself so much from carbohydrates is that instead of using glucose, which is what, Rachel?
It's the sugar in our body that actually makes us run, that feeds our cells to make us go.
Yeah, and it's the number one source of fuel that your brain uses.
Right.
So when you restrict yourself from that, your brain, which dominates everything that happens with your body, it needs some sort of fuel in order to continue to function. So, Rachel, what is it that it uses if glucose is no longer available?
It's going to use your fat storage. First, it's going to use your protein, and then it's going to go towards your fat.
Exactly.
So it's not really the best thing when you're starting to break down the protein that you have.
Mm-hmm.
So,
why do we break down protein?
Because you caught me off guard on that one. It's
okay. Gluconeogenesis. That's what it's called.
Okay.
Yeah, so we break down protein, and we actually break down fat because your body wants to get to glucose because, again, it's the number one source that your brain uses for fuel. So your body's going to break down your fat cells. It's also going to break down your protein cells, which is not what we want to have happen, in order to get to glucose as its main source. Once that's done, after people see an initial weight loss that occurs from that, is when you start using ketones for energy.
Yes.
Yeah.
We don't want to use ketones for energy. Ketones in our blood or in our urine, it's not a good sign. When we see that as a dietitian you're going to notice that you're going to feel a little bit more sluggish. You're going to have like a brain fog because your body's not going to be feeding your brain with the glucose that it needs. It's going to be running off of the fat cells that it's breaking down instead.
Yeah. And I think also too, the more that you do that, the higher nitrogen intake that your body actually gets from proteins and from fat sources. And that's actually increased stress, they call it, on your kidneys. So it's more work that your kidneys have to do in order to filter it out of your bloodstream, because your blood is like the oil of the car. It's going everywhere. It's making sure that it runs appropriately, but we got to filter it. And that's what our liver and our kidneys are for.
Right.
So Atkins is a little bit higher in protein content, still does have higher fat. They both have in common the fact that they limit carbohydrates, which we aren't the biggest fan of because we need it in order to function properly.
Right.
Yeah. All right. Number 6. This is a good one too. Is stevia better than honey or sugar? Now, that's actually a very interesting question because simply we just don't know enough about stevia right now as to whether or not it's better for us or not good for us at all. Really, stevia, it comes from a plant. It is a sugar substitute. That's what it's used for. It's not an artificial sweetener. It's a sugar substitute. Our body just lacks the enzyme we need in order to break it down in order to use it for energy. So in simple terms, it basically means that we get no energy out of it. It's 0 calorie. But we do taste its sweetness. Now, stevia, there just hasn't been enough research to show if it affects our blood sugars at all, like what regular sugar does. And also with stevia, it doesn't actually taste like sugar. So sugar has like its own like sweetener. It makes things nice and sweet. Stevia kind of has its own little flavor a little bit. And then also to compare it to honey. So I know honey, agave nectar, syrup, things like that tend to be considered a little bit more of like better sugars than just your standard sucrose, which is your table sugar. But at the end of the day, sugar is sugar. You know, your body's going to break it down the same way. Honey might have a little bit of a different flavor. And at that point, really what it comes down to is just preference. Understanding that we don't know everything there is to know about stevia right now. So it's your choice if you want to use it or not. And honey itself as well versus sugar, it basically comes down to what it is that you guys like to do. But at the end of the day, sugar is sugar, and your body's going to break it down the same way. And kind of like what Rachel had mentioned earlier, everything in moderation.
Exactly. If you wanna have the tea with the sugar, have a teaspoon, not a teaspoon, have a teaspoon. But don't overindulge in it. Just moderation.
Exactly. Well, if you guys have any other questions or there was a topic that you want us to explain in more detail than what it is that we did, please feel free to reach out to myself. You can reach out to Rachel too if you want to, or you can leave a comment below and we'll be sure to answer them again.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks, guys. I'll be bugging you soon, I promise. All right. Bye.
Bye.